brain is a very expensive organ. The function of the brain requires a lot of energy. The large intestine is only one third of our small intestine. It is much smaller. So a very small percentage of our digestion happens in the large intestine.
If the apes, or if the the wild animals, or if the primates had their food, they would actually have it fresh. So whatever nutrients was taken, so the gut size decreased but the brain size increased. So I mean, there is a connect between the gut and the brain, isn't there?
In human evolution, there is so much time and energy spent on brain development. So humans have evolved because of fermentation. Fermentation and human brain go hand in hand. The gut is our second brain. It is required to support our first brain. This is how we have evolved. We cannot separate them. The gut bacteria or the probiotic strains that were responsible for making us cognitively superior are slowly dying. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this super exciting series that we are recording of podcasts for the evolution of the human brain, how we have actually evolved, what are the crucial factors that were responsible for it, how do we take care of our cognitive functions. So, if you are somebody who is looking at improving your performance at work, your cognitive skills, your memory, or your children's academic performance, anything related to the brain, this is the podcast for you. Stay tuned and watch till the very end because we are going to bring in some amazing insights that you might have never heard. So, today we are going to be focusing on how the human brain has evolved, how we are cognitively a lot more superior than other animals, if we say in that terms. What are the factors that are responsible? There are some amazing secrets in this. In order to unravel these secrets, I'm inviting my co host, Sujata Gokhale. Welcome, Sujata. So, Sujata Gokhale is also a co founder at Arna Gen Next, along with myself and Renuka Kelkar. She is a food blogger, a food researcher too in this company with an amazing knowledge of nutrition and the gut microbiome. So, we always keep talking about the gut microbiome, how to improve gut health. This is an amazing topic that we are bringing in. What do you say, Sujata?
Yes, Rashmi, very interesting topic. And before I begin, let me say hello to the viewers. Hello, viewers. I'm Sujata Gokhale, and Rashmi has already introduced me as the co-founder and the food researcher for Arna Gen Next and Gen Next Solutions Private Limited. But like Rashmi told, this topic has always intrigued me. You know, the human evolution and food. Did diet play a role in the evolution of the human brain? And if so, what happened? And this thought especially came up because, like I would like to ask Rashmi that I come to understand that the humans or the Homo sapiens have evolved from the primates, and that is apparent from the size of our brains and the gut size. That means if I were to compare a human today with a primate, my brain would be three times much more bigger than the primate, and my gut size would be smaller. Is it true, Rashmi? And can you throw some light on this?
Yes, absolutely. So, this is a very important question. Now, you might say that, oh, why are we talking about human evolution? Why do we need to study that? But that holds the secret to a lot of aspects of our health. We need to understand who we really are in order to take care of ourselves. So, if we compare ourselves to primates, or primates are the mammals that are most similar to humans, like if we consider apes, chimps, bonobos, monkeys, those are the primates we are comparing ourselves to. And we know that we have evolved from primates, from other primates. So if we think of evolution, or if we think of what has changed in terms of the brain size and the cognitive function, the brain of humans right now is three times larger as compared to the primates that we have evolved from. So this process of evolution has been very long. If we consider the last common ancestor, that is for chimps and bonobos and the humans currently, there's a separation of 2.5 to 4 million years. That's how long it has taken for this whole process. We have evolved 2.5 to 4 million years ago, actually. And if we look at apes, that separation is 8 million years. So, in this period of time, we have evolved to be cognitively superior because the brain size has increased, the cognitive functions have increased. And do you know what is the important point here? That brain is a very expensive organ. The function of the brain requires a lot of energy. So, if we consider in other animals, the brain size is smaller, they need a lot lesser energy. So probably apes or other lower animals, lower as in terms of evolution, they require maybe 5% of their energy for their brain usage or cognitive functions. In humans, although the brain weighs only 2% of our weight, body weight, we use up 20% of our total energy on our brain functions, on our cognitive functions. That's a very huge number. Where does it come from? So, in order for this evolution to happen, we had to give up something, we had to do something very, very different. Now, in the process of evolution, whatever is selected is for better survival. So, some animals had, better skills of climbing trees for survival, for example. Some developed better muscles so that they could run away from whoever was trying to eat them. So, like deer have much better muscles, they can run really fast if a tiger is approaching them. But humans have given up on some muscles. And the most important part that humans have given up on is their gut. Do you know the size of our gut is 60% as compared to that of chimp or any other primate? It is much smaller. So when I say gut, it means the large intestine. So this was an amazing change. To gain something, we had to give up on something very, very important, because the maintenance of the gut also takes, it is also not that cheap. So in order to reduce that expense, the gut size was reduced. If we compare the size of our gut, our large intestine versus that of a primate, the primate's large intestine is 6 times larger than their small intestine. It is so large, and a lot of digestion happens in that large intestine. In humans, the large intestine is only one third of our small intestine. It is much smaller. So a very small percentage of our digestion happens in the large intestine. So you would think, oh, where is all of this digestion happening from? How are we getting all of these extra calories? If we need so much more energy, where are we getting all of these nutrients from? Our gut is much smaller. That is because there is something amazing that we have managed to do in this process of evolution. We have outsourced our digestion to other processes. One of them is cooking. Cooking helps us pre-digest the food that we eat. The other process, very, very important and beautiful process, is fermentation. Fermentation is a process where bacteria, yeast, and all of these other wonderful microorganisms are going to digest the food for us. They are going to pre digest the food, and they are going to help us get even more nutrition from the same food that we eat. And this is how we have evolved.
Thank you, Rashmi, for mentioning that those two processes, because it has kind of made a distinctive difference in the way our, how we have used the external factors to develop our gut size and the brain size. So cooking and lighting fires, would require invention, and it was it would have taken a certain amount of time for humans to reach that kind of state where they could light fires and understand how fires could help them to cook the food for their nutrition. But it is interesting to know that fermentation, external fermentation, and that is when my curiosity as a food researcher made me go back to certain documents and have a look at them. And I was amazed to find out that, like you mentioned, we have given up on muscles, different muscles for our survival. But we used, certain other techniques for our survival as well. So if the apes, or if the the wild animals, or if the primates had their food, they would actually have it fresh. But we,
Yes.
with
So,
our instinct of
yes.
storing the food, would actually bring home some food and keep it in a place, store it in a place. And that was the spot that could have triggered the fermentation, external fermentation, because storing in the same place would have allowed the culture, the fermentation process to start. And when it was replenished with fresh meat, the starter culture was there, so the food again was, getting fermented. So external fermentation happened that way. Also the food from the trees, that is the fruits and whatever leaves or foliage we used to have as the primates, I mean as the the homo species, that would also be rotting on the floor and have gone through the process of fermentation. So I won't use the word rot, because we would probably have through experimental basis understood what is spoilage and what is fermentation. So, Rashmi, do you think it could have been possible that if this process was happening, it could impact our gut and cognitive development of the brain? Do you think fermentation does play a role?
So, yeah, before we get into that, it's a very important question. I just want to explain the basics of what exactly is happening here. If we consider the process of digestion in the large intestine, what happens is majority of the fiber is digested there. Now, if we just look at the process of digestion, digestion of any food happens mechanically first in the mouth when we start chewing it, and then enzymatically with all of the enzymes that we have in our saliva, in our digestive tract. Even in the stomach, the food does get pulverized mechanically, and then enzymes act on it. And after all of this happens, or after the food is digested, the nutrients are absorbed even in the small intestine. Through all of these processes, the fiber, which is still undigested, passes to the large intestine, and this is where the internal fermentation, majority of the internal fermentation happens. So if we talk about the gut microbiome, which plays a amazingly important role here. Now, microorganisms or bacteria evolved way before we did. We have been on earth for just 2.5 to 4 million years. If we think of hominids, Homo sapiens only 300,000 years, but bacteria have been around for 3.5 billion years, and they do such an amazing job. They form 95% of our microbiome, our gut microbiome. So here what they are doing is they are fermenting or digesting the food for us. They are releasing the nutrients, and the small intestine only has counts in millions per ml. The count is very small, but whatever majority of this fermentation, internal fermentation, that happens in the large intestine, because the counts are really high. It's in trillions per it's a trillion per ml of bacteria, which is a very high number. So this internal fermentation gives all of the wonderful nutrients, the short chain fatty acids that are required to keep the gut happy and healthy, to keep us mentally fit, and to do all of the other functions. So if we think of our large intestine, only 20% of this digestion is happening in the large intestine. If we think of other animals like cows, for example, who have those multiple stomachs, and to digest this foliage or the hay fully, they are doing 80% of their digestion in that part, the large intestine. So there's a huge difference in what we are getting out of it. That is why it is required to do this fermentation externally. And if when you rightly talked about this fruits that had fallen on the ground, now animals who can climb trees can pick fresh fruits. Humans had already lost the muscle in the process of evolution. Humans were not equipped to climb trees that easily, so they would be picking fruits on whatever produce on the ground, whatever could be found easily. And also another interesting thing happened during the process of evolution is that humans moved from being completely herbivore to starting to eat meat. But now studies have shown that it was not by hunting, it was by eating meat that was hunted by other animals. So if you think of those carcasses, they also might be mildly fermented. So if you think of all of these foods, fermentation played a huge role. And if we think of what fermentation does now, fermentation actually allows pre-digestion of the food. It is digested. The calories can be very easily harvested. The micro and macronutrients are released much more efficiently, so that we can get a lot more carbohydrates, proteins, healthy fats, all of the vitamins, all of the minerals. If we talk about the B complex, for example, the B vitamins, we know that the gut microbiome plays a huge role in making these B vitamins. But this fermented food is also an amazing source of all of these. Vitamin K, which is required for blood clotting, again comes from these, either these fermented foods or from our gut microbiome. So the microorganisms or the bacteria are playing an amazing role, and also the yeast, in releasing these nutrients, making them bioavailable for us. So that is an amazing thing that fermentation does. Another very, very important thing, and the other animals do not have this advantage because they think that, oh, this food is spoiled. They do not touch that food. They go for the fresh food because they can. They have the ability to digest it. They have other survival skills. Cognition is not, higher cognitive skills is not one of them. So humans outsourced this digestion. Cooking, as you rightly said, with the invent of fire, cooking also helps us pre-digest the food and get our nutrients a lot more easily. But if we think of fermentation, what else does it do? Now, there are things that are poisonous to many animals. Like if we talk about the bitter cassava, that is poisonous. But the process of fermentation allows the bacteria to make it, to neutralize it, to remove the toxins. So it has cyanogenic granules in it. So they actually neutralize it and they make it a lot more digestible for us. They improve the digestibility, they harvest the nutrients from us. So that is that amazing thing that we can eat a large diversity of foods because these microorganisms are helping us. They are helping make these foods edible for us. That's not happening with other animals because they do not touch the fermented foods. So that's one very important aspect of fermentation.
So it's actually very amazing, Rashmi, because both are calorie intensive, the gut, the functions of the gut and the brain. And somehow or somewhere, humans gave up, actually using up more energy for the gut, for the brain to develop, for the cognition to develop. So whatever nutrients was taken, so the gut size decreased, but the brain size increased. So, I mean, there is a connect between the gut and the brain, isn't there? I mean, it
Yes, yes,
is not an
absolutely. So
exaggeration to call it, yeah, a second brain, the gut. I mean,
absolutely. So that is such an important point. Now, I will talk about that. There is another thing. I will first mention the third thing that happens by outsourcing this thing. That when I said that, the bacteria are making this bioavailable, the nutrients bioavailable, and I'll talk about why this is important. When the bacteria, yeast, and other microorganisms are making food more bioavailable for us, the other thing that is happening when we consume these fermented foods is that we are getting new live microorganisms or live germs every single day. They are populating our gut and they are again helping us do the process of digestion even better. That's an amazing source of the gut microbiome. So that is the third very important thing that happens. And when this is continuously happening, it is enhancing cognitive skills because we are getting a lot more nutrition, calories as in the important calories, not the empty calories that we see these days. And they are supporting brain development, they are supporting neuronal development. In the process of evolution, if we take a look at any other animal or any other plant, animals, if I give an example of a deer or a cow, whenever there's a birth of a baby cow or a deer, what do you see? That the calf starts running the day it is born. It is supposed to be able to feed itself. It should know where to go for food. Nobody tells that calf how to do it, or nobody's taking care of that calf, that, oh, picking it up just like a human does. But in human evolution, there is so much time and energy spent on brain development. So when a baby is born, a human baby is born, a human baby has about almost 80% of neurons that an adult brain has when it is born. But all of the neuronal connections need to be made and they need to be trimmed in a way to make the brain function efficient. So instead of trying to learn to walk or trying to learn to feed itself or do other things, all of that energy goes in development of the brain. And you will see that humans are taking care of their babies. The baby cannot take care of itself. So that is a very important thing that happened during human evolution. That's why human babies are so different than all other animals, because the brain is the most important thing that needs to develop here. So brain foods, anything that feeds the brain, is very, very, very crucial at this age.
So I think there is also another aspect to this brain development, the neurotransmitters that are in the gut. We will make a
Absolutely.
series of podcast on that. We will target that. But Rashmi, here I wanted to ask, since we are talking about the food and the cognitive development, how is food going to impact our cognitive development that we have seen? But in the present times, are we disturbing the gut brain axis, and how will it impact our cognition in the long run? Are we looking at getting smarter with the foods we are eating or not?
That's a very good question. So when we talked about this evolution, now I talked about the baby, right? So most people think that cognitive development ends sometime in maybe toddlerhood or maybe when kids are 6 to 7 years old. But did you know that recent studies, I think it was about 4 years ago, that a paper, a very nice study showed that brain development actually is going on till we are 25 to even 30 years of age. So even when humans are adults, brain development is still happening. It's not that it just suddenly stops when children are growing. When they're in their teens, it suddenly stops happening. So cognitive development, if you think, is a very important process. It is so important that it keeps happening even through adulthood. How many people know about this? How many people are feeding themselves the right kinds of foods to support? Now, if we talk about the kind of foods, fermented foods are so important. The other thing that fermentation does is it removes anti nutrients. I forgot to mention that previously, but cooking cannot remove all of the anti-nutrients. So plants, as we saw in the previous podcast with Shweta Shivkumar, she mentioned this, that plants are trying to defend themselves. They will make sure that we are not able to digest. So they keep adding a lot of enzymes, a lot of chemicals to make sure that other animals cannot digest them. But fermentation is a process where these enzymes are removed or they are inactivated. We don't have those enzymes. Other animals have those enzymes like phytase to remove the phytate. So they have those enzymes. We don't. So we need the help of bacteria or other microorganisms to inactivate them so that we get the nutrients. So many people say, oh, we are eating a very healthy diet. But do you know if you are getting anything out of it? If, for example, people say that, oh, I'm eating millets, we did episodes on millets previously. How many people know the right way of eating them? Phytic acid is a very strong anti nutrient. If they are not consumed in the right way, without soaking, without fermentation, there's a high chance that because of phytic acid, the nutrients are just not available from these same healthy millets. So the kind of cooking, the kind of things that processing we need to do, the fermentation, it is so important to get the right kind of nutrients. Nobody's following any of that because of lack of awareness of all of these, and because we kind of look down upon evolution. Now I want to bring this very important point, a very I saw this there's a misconception about fermented foods in India, for example. I just heard recently from a renowned food historian that fermentation came to India very recently from somewhere else. I disagree, because scientific studies have shown that humans have evolved because of fermentation. Fermentation and human brain go hand in hand. They have never been separated. We cannot pinpoint it to any culture or whatever. It doesn't belong anywhere. It is with the human race. We have completely forgotten about it. People do not use fermented foods. The only thing people might use is maybe yogurt. So that is, they limit it very much. And what is happening in our gut actually, because of these wonderful microorganisms, there is something, as you rightly mentioned, the gut brain axis. The gut is our second brain. It is required to support our first brain. This is how we have evolved. We cannot separate them. We cannot treat them as separate. So when we take care of our gut, that's why we always talk about gut health. Then we can take care of our brain health. They are directly linked. And how are they linked? Just like you said, the neurotransmitters or the chemical messengers that are determining our mood, our performance, our academic performance, or whatever emotions or mental state that we are in, are made, majority of them are made or regulated by the germs in our gut, by our gut microbiome. And they act directly on our peripheral nervous system, which is 90% of it is in our digestive system. So it's an amazing, amazing correlation between our gut and our brain. So, yeah, if we think of all of these wonderful neurotransmitters, if I want to give some examples, Do you know that dopamine, the hormone that makes us feel like we are rewarded, it's called a reward hormone. It is made by the germs in our gut, and it gives us the feeling of being very, very rewarded. So some people might just not have that feeling at all because they lack dopamine. They don't have that. If we talk about gamma aminobutyric acid or GABA, that is another hormone that makes us feel very calm and relaxed. It acts as a brake on our nervous system. So people who are very anxious, who are very stressed out all the time, might just be lacking GABA. That's it. I mean, it's such a simple thing that they might be lacking this neurotransmitter because they are not feeding the germs the right kind of food. So it could be something as simple as that. The third example I can give is serotonin, which is the happiness hormone. That's the hormone that makes us feel really happy. And just some people have nothing going on. They are poor, they don't have anything going right, but they are just happy and content. They probably have very good amounts of serotonin. On the other hand, you see people who own a lot of things but are never happy. That is probably because they do not have serotonin being made in their gut. We need the right kind of germs in our gut to have all of these wonderful neurotransmitters. Our brain health, our cognitive functions can only be supported if we have the right kind of gut health or the gut microbiome.
That was wonderful, Rashmi, what you highlighted, because not only that cognitive development that begins from 0 to 25, but also our emotional health is also totally dependent on our gut health. So when we say that the right kind of food will help us, develop our cognition and keep our emotional mental wellness in a right state of mind, so that itself is enough reason for us to have our gut healthy. And so I think we should be eating the right kind of food to keep it healthy. Are we doing that?
So I just remembered something that, we heard this many, many times. Since childhood, we have been hearing this, that a way to a man's heart is through his stomach. There's a very important reason for that. It is true. It is true.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely true. If we think of the kind of things we are eating now, if we look at our ancestors, we think that there were these very highly evolved, superior thinking humans who lived before us. If we think about our ancestors, now it's obvious. It's more and more obvious that the previous generations were a lot more superior in terms of cognitive skills than any of us. So, if we think of the kind of a lifestyle they live, the kind of food that they eat, and what we are doing now, especially after so much technology has evolved, the human body or the human brain has not evolved as fast as technology has. We are still the same as we were in the Stone Age. We have not changed much. But the kind of food that we are eating, the kind of lifestyle that we are living, does not match the body that we have at all. So not only are we not eating the fermented foods, not only are we not following the right kind of cooking techniques to extract the best nutrition out of this food, the food is also not as nutritious as it used to be a few decades ago or a few centuries ago. There are many, many reasons why we are not getting nutrition out of the food that we eat. Even though we feel full, we are only eating for satiety. And then there is the other extreme of having these empty calories, where people have moved from eating food to food stuff to eating things that have empty calories, like a pizza or a burger or something that is absolutely non-nutritious. So this is the other extreme, where it is killing the gut microorganisms, the gut bacteria or the probiotic strains that were responsible for making us cognitively superior are slowly dying. They are slowly becoming extinct. So how can we be cognitively better? How can we have good memory? How is it even possible if it is not supported by the right kind of food or the right kind of lifestyle? So that is a contradiction, that people want something, but the thing that they are doing is completely opposite of that, and there is no awareness to bring all of both of these together. So I think this series that we are doing on neurotransmitters is really going to help people bridge this gap between where they are right now and where they want to be in terms of cognitive skills. So I think this
Yes.
need.
Yes, Rashmi. I mean, it's going to be a wonderful series for people who are really interested in knowing, how that gut health is going to improve not only their cognitive skills, but if they are having kids, the next generation as well, because this is what is the treasure that we need to hand over to our next generation, so that they keep the whole process going on, and we develop into superhumans as we go, and superheroes as we go. So thank you, Rashmi, and I hope that this particular podcast will bring an awareness to the people that gut health and brain health are interconnected. Gut and brain have an axis between them, which we need to actually uh, protect, so that there is no cognitive decline. Thank you so
Yes,
much,
and I
Rashmi, for
remembered one more important thing that we were discussing before this podcast, that you mentioned about the distance that animals have to travel for getting their food. So
yes,
as you mentioned, that the distance that animals have to go for to get their food or hunt for their food is a few meters, maybe 300 meters at the most, and the amount of I mean, the distance that humans need to cover, even the Hazda tribe studies recently have shown that they have to
yes,
actually walk for 20 kilometers to get their food
get their food,
every
yes.
single day. And how long do we have to walk? A few steps to our refrigerator to get the food. This is why humans are getting fatter, are getting unhealthier, and not the other animals, because they are still living the life that they used to. And we have moved to this very convenient where food is available at a beck and call. It is available 24/7. We don't actually have to walk 20 kilometers to go for any kind of food. So that was an amazing insight, and it's a very important consideration that our body is still there.
Yes. Thank you, Rashmi, for this
Thank you so
wonderful
much,
event.
Sujata.
Thank you.
So, if you found this podcast useful, do let us know in the comments box what is it that you would like to hear next. We are bringing this amazing long series of neurotransmitters, and what are the things that we need to consider in order to keep our cognitive skills sharp. What is it that we need to do to keep our health in good shape? If we are talking not just about physical health, but mental and emotional health as well. If you have not subscribed to our channel, do it right away and do share this podcast with everyone you think requires this. See you in the next one.